Your spear snaps in your hands. Not later. Not safely back at camp. Now. The animal is still moving. Your breath is too loud. And the one thing between your body and a desperate, wounded animal has suddenly become two useless pieces of wood. For most of human history, this was not a dramatic movie scene. This was a real survival problem. A broken tool could turn a planned hunt into a dangerous mistake. But the surprising truth is this: your ancestors were not betting their lives on one perfect weapon. They were betting on preparation, teamwork, and the ability to turn failure into another plan within seconds. So what actually happens when your spear breaks during the hunt? Start with the spear itself. It is not just a sharpened stick. At its simplest, a spear is stored time. It is the hours spent choosing the right wood, scraping the shaft smooth, shaping the point, balancing the weight, and testing how it feels in your hand. When you carry it, you are carrying yesterday's work into today's hunger. Archaeologists know this because some ancient spears survived by accident. At Schöningen, in Germany, wooden hunting weapons were found in waterlogged sediments, a kind of wet-buried environment that can preserve wood long after it should have rotted away. The site is famous for complete wooden spears and throwing sticks associated with large animal remains, especially horses. Hartmut Thieme, the archaeologist who led the early excavations in the 1990s, argued that these were not random sticks. They were carefully made hunting weapons. That matters because wood almost never survives from deep prehistory. Stone lasts. Bone sometimes lasts. Wood usually disappears, so the archaeological record can trick you into thinking ancient people lived in a world of stone, when much of their real technology may have been wood, fiber, glue, hide, and knowledge carried in the hands. What does that mean for your broken spear? It means the loss is bigger than the object. If the shaft cracks, you lose reach. If the tip snaps off, you lose penetration. If a stone point comes loose from the front, you lose the part designed to open flesh, fast enough to make the hunt work. And if the break happens at close range, you lose the distance that keeps teeth, horns, hooves, or tusks away from your ribs. A spear is a safety zone. When it breaks, that zone collapses. Now picture the moment. You are not alone, because large game hunting in deep prehistory was usually a group problem. You may be with several hunters spread across a slope, a lakeshore, a patch of brush, or a narrow path animals often use. The target is not a cartoon monster. It might be a horse, deer, antelope, wild cattle, or in colder places, something even larger. The danger is not only being eaten, it is being kicked, crushed, gored, or knocked down hard enough that infection later does the killing. The first rule is not heroism. The first rule is distance. If your spear breaks before contact, you may step back and let another hunter take the dangerous angle. If it breaks after striking, your job may change instantly from attacker to driver, blocker, shouter, or tracker. You wave the broken shaft. You throw stones. You keep the animal moving toward people who still have working weapons. In a hunt, a failed spear does not always mean a failed person. It means your role changes. Could you repair it right there? Sometimes no. If you have a plain wooden spear and the point snaps badly, you cannot magically grow a new balanced tip while an animal is running. You might sharpen a broken end later with a stone flake, but that takes time and calm hands. If the shaft breaks in the middle, the weapon becomes shorter, weaker, and less predictable. A broken spear can still jab, it can still push, it can still keep an animal away for a few seconds, but it is no longer the tool you started with. And that is why ancient hunters did not think like video game characters with one item slot. They carried options, maybe not a backpack full of gear in the modern sense, but backups mattered. A hunter might carry more than one spear, or hunt beside someone who did. A group could use wooden throwing sticks, stone flakes for butchery and emergency reshaping, and smaller tools for cutting sinew, hide, or plant fibers. The weapon system was not one spear. It was the people, the landscape, the spare tools, the planned route, and the shared understanding of what to do when things went wrong. This is where the idea gets deeper. At Schöningen, researchers have not found just a single perfect spear. Recent work has expanded the picture into a larger wooden technology, including spears, throwing sticks, and other worked wood. Anamika Milks, an archaeologist who studies early weapons, has helped show through experimental archaeology that Pleistocene hand-thrown spears could be effective at distance in skilled hands. Experimental archaeology means making and testing replicas to understand what ancient tools could actually do. The key word is skilled. A spear is not powerful because it exists. A spear is powerful because a trained body knows how to use it. Your shoulder, wrist, eyes, balance, and timing are part of the weapon. If the spear breaks, the damage is physical, but the response is mental. You have to read the animal, read the group, and read the ground under your feet. That is not primitive. That is expert. Now imagine a stone-tipped spear instead of a plain wooden one. The danger changes. A stone point can cut deeply and create a more damaging wound, but it also creates a new weak spot where stone meets wood. The technical word is hafting. Hafting simply means attaching one tool part to another, like fastening a stone point onto a wooden shaft. It sounds simple until you try to make it survive impact. At Kathupan 1 in South Africa, Jane Wilkins and her colleagues argued that roughly half-million-year-old stone points show evidence consistent with use as spear tips. The evidence includes impact damage, which means tiny breakage patterns that can happen when a point hits a target with force. Not every researcher agrees on every detail, so the careful wording matters. But the bigger point is solid. Attaching a point to a shaft was a major step because it created a composite tool, a tool made from multiple parts working together. Multiple parts mean multiple failure points. The stone can snap, the binding can loosen, the wooden shaft can split, the glue can fail in heat, wet weather, or after repeated impacts. To modern eyes, a spear may look simple, but a hafted spear is actually an engineering problem made from stone, wood, fiber, adhesive, and human judgment. That is why glue becomes a survival story. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, Lynn Wadley and colleagues studied Middle Stone Age compound adhesives made with plant gum and red ochre. Ochre is an iron-rich earth pigment, often red, and in this case, it was not just pretty color. Experiments suggested that adding ochre could improve the adhesive mixture and that making the glue required careful heating, drying, and attention. In plain English, some ancient people were not just tying rocks to sticks, they were managing chemistry by firelight. So when your spear breaks, the question is not only, why did the stick fail? The question is, which part of the whole system failed? Maybe the wood had a hidden crack. Maybe the point hit bone instead of soft tissue. Maybe the binding was old. Maybe rain softened part of the haft. Maybe the animal twisted at impact and snapped the shaft sideways. A spear breaks because the hunt is violent, and violence tests every tiny decision made hours, days, or weeks earlier. Now comes the counterintuitive twist. A broken spear might not always be a disaster. Sometimes, it is information. If the point breaks inside the animal, the injury may still be serious. If the shaft snaps after deep penetration, the wound may continue to bleed. If the animal runs, your group may follow tracks, blood, disturbed grass, broken branches, or the direction birds and scavengers later notice. Many hunts may have involved patience after impact, not instant victory. A broken spear could mean failure, but it could also mean the weapon did its job once and died doing it. That sounds brutal because it was. But ancient hunters did not need every spear to survive forever. They needed the group to survive. Tools were repairable. People were not always repairable. If breaking the spear kept a charging animal away from someone's body, the spear had already paid for itself. Still, losing it hurt. A good spear was not disposable in the way a modern plastic object is disposable. Making one required material knowledge. You needed the right branch or trunk, straight enough and strong enough. You needed cutting tools. You needed time to scrape and smooth it. You needed to know how thick the point should be, because too thin can snap, and too thick may not penetrate well. You needed balance, because a throwing spear that flies badly is just a stick leaving your hand with confidence and arriving with embarrassment. Who taught you that? Probably someone older, someone who had watched spears fail, someone who knew which wood warped, which knots were dangerous, and which repairs were not worth trusting on a serious hunt. Prehistoric technology was not only objects, it was memory, passed from body to body. This is the part modern people often miss. A broken spear is not just a hunting problem, it is a social problem. If you are the person whose spear failed, the group now has to absorb that failure. Someone may cover you, someone may hand you another weapon, someone may take your position. Someone may later criticize how you made the spear, stored it, or struck with it. Survival depends on trust, and trust depends on whether your tools, your attention, and your choices can be relied on. That pressure is enormous. You are not hunting for sport. You are hunting because meat can feed children, elders, pregnant women, injured people, and everyone who spent calories helping the group live. A failed hunt is not just an empty stomach for one person. It can mean wasted energy for many. In a world without supermarkets, every broken tool has a cost measured in hunger. But it is not a simple world of constant starvation either. Hunter-gatherer life was flexible. People gathered plants, trapped small animals, scavenged sometimes, shared food, and moved with seasonal knowledge. Meat was valuable, but your ancestors were not helpless if one spear broke. That is another important correction. The viral version says, one broken spear equals death. The accurate version is more interesting. One broken spear can become death if it happens at the wrong distance, at the wrong moment, with no backup, no group, and no escape. Survival is not about never failing. Survival is about designing life so one failure does not end everything. So your ancestors built redundancy into their world. Redundancy means having more than one way for something to work, more than one hunter, more than one weapon, more than one food source, more than one path home, more than one person who knows how to make the tool again. That is the real intelligence, hidden inside the broken spear. Not the drama of the snap, the planning before it. After the hunt, if you return alive, the broken pieces matter. You examine the break. You learn from the grain of the wood, the angle of the impact, the loosened binding, the shattered point. A broken tool becomes a lesson you can hold. Maybe the front can be reshaped. Maybe the shorter piece becomes a digging stick, a child's practice spear, a fire poker, a wedge, or fuel. Ancient people wasted less than you imagine, because every object carried work inside it. Then comes the quiet scene. The animal is butchered, or the hunt fails, and the group walks back lighter than it hoped. Someone sits near a fire. A shaft is scraped. A point is retouched. Retouch means small flakes are removed from stone to sharpen or reshape an edge. A binding is tightened. A mistake becomes a new rule. Next time, you carry a spare. Next time, you check the grain. Next time, you do not trust that old crack near the point. This is how technology evolves. Not only through genius inventions, but through failure remembered accurately. Your modern life still works this way. A charger breaks before a deadline. A car fails on the way to work. A laptop dies before a project is saved. The object is smaller now, the danger usually softer, but the feeling is ancient. The plan in your head collapses because one tool you trusted stops working, and your body reacts before your mind explains it. Stress rises. Time speeds up. You search for backups. You blame yourself, the tool, the timing, or the world. That reaction is not random. Your nervous system comes from bodies that once had to solve problems while hungry, cold, watched by animals, and surrounded by people depending on them. A broken spear during the hunt is the ancient version of every modern system failure. It asks the same question. Did you build your life around one fragile point, or did you build a way to survive the snap? Your spear snaps in your hands. And suddenly, the real weapon is everything you prepared before it broke.